Welcome back to Getting Caught Up. I had a chance to catch up with Estee Palti, who is the premier Kamala Harris impressionist out there right now. She is amazing. I'm telling you, no one does it better. You very likely come across one of her videos on social media in recent weeks, especially after Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden as the Democrats' presidential candidate. Estee does an absolutely spot-on impression of Harris. She's got everything down. The voice, the inflection, the mannerisms, and most importantly, the signature laugh. Her videos are hilarious, and they have resulted in a huge rise in her popularity. She's been making appearances on TV and internet shows doing the impression, and has done a few satirical debates with Donald Trump impressionists. Frankly, SNL should call her up right now and hire her for the new season that starts in October. So we talked about that and how she got started doing this impression in the first place, and how the impression ended up getting her invited to Donald Trump's 2022 Halloween party at Mar-a-Lago, where she actually had the chance to meet the former president in person. Even though Estee's been riding this wave of popularity, she still has a 9-to-5 day job. So we talked about balancing that with doing the impression and feeding her growing audience each day. She's also got 3 kids, and we talked about what they think of her success, as well as her husband, who is very supportive, but initially was skeptical that things would turn out the way they have for her. We also touched on Estee's background. She was born in Russia and came to America at the age of 4 when her parents fled Russia. She pointed out that her family came to the U.S. legally and talked about the difficulties her parents faced trying to make a new life in the U.S. And we talked about some of the hot button issues of the 2024 presidential race, including illegal immigration. Quick reminder, please give this episode a like, share, or a comment to help with the podcast visibility so I can keep bringing you conversations with interesting people like Estee. She is truly a fascinating and very funny person, and it was really fun talking with her. So let's get into it. This is, I think, her first in-depth interview. Here she is from New York City, Estee Palti. Estee Palti, good to meet you. Welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, and you know, I'm meeting you, and you're actually really having a moment right now, aren't you?
Yes.
This is, I mean, it's like
quite a ride. Yeah.
It's quite a ride. That's a great way to describe it. I mean, it's sort of like you're skyrocketing here. I mean, I guess you've been on TikTok for quite a while, which I'm not really on TikTok. I came across you on Twitter like maybe a month ago, and I feel like you've just been surging. Like everyone's following you, and you're doing this. I mean, you're like the premier Kamala Harris impressionist out there. So how's this been? How's it felt?
It's very overwhelming. I definitely feel like this is where I was headed when I was doing the impression. And at some point, because I started doing it like when she came into office. But at some point, people would be like, a couple of years into it. I think it was like 2 years into the presidency where they're just like, all right, like we get it. She's annoying. It's funny. And they still follow, they still ask for the impression, but it really turned into like, do you want to like try to make fun of somebody else, maybe AOC? And I just, the same response. I just had to give people the complete truth. And my intuition was like, I'm telling you guys, like, I got to stick with it because I feel like this impression is going to take front and center. And I know how powerful these things can be. Like if you're really good at your craft and you're making fun of somebody in politics, just like this, you can really shoot up. What I didn't anticipate is like what it actually means to shoot up because I didn't really plan to be able to travel or do anything like that. I'm still kind of, hands are tied because priorities are family life. I still have a 9-to-5. I can't be unrealistic and unreasonable. If I was probably like 20, I'd probably quit my job so fast and just try to, like I'd move to LA, like the Haktua girl. Like she's like, you know what? I went viral. I'm going to milk this for everything that it's worth.
Oh, you got to give him that Hawk tour.
And she's doing great. Like I see that she's doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I saw she was throwing the first pitch out at the Mets game the other day.
Yeah, I can't even and people have asked me like, does that bother you? Like she's literally done nothing for this. And I'm like, no, like comparison is the thief of joy. I don't feel like I should be like one of those like, oh, this should be me. It's not fair. It's not like that at all. Whatever attention it is that's going on, I'm just grateful to be part of the movement, which is really just to kind of like expose the Democratic Party through comedy for whatever it is. I think that we're in really dangerous times. And just as a mom, as somebody that lives in New York, as someone that sees what's going on, as a legal immigrant to this country who's escaped communism, this is not it. The Harris Biden ticket is not it. I wish people understood this. If they lived in communism, they would understand. And, the impression started one way. It started to like, oh, I think this is going to be the one that gets the most views. it morphed into something completely different. It is now literally like I said, a movement. I've met so many like-minded people. I'm sad that I didn't just like, put myself on Twitter earlier. I genuinely didn't know that Twitter was even this awesome. I guess like the Elon Musk Twitter is awesome because I didn't like it like way back when that I
Yeah.
downloaded it. So for me, I was like, oh my God, this is like where my true community lies. This is where the people are that are passionate about it, but also know that they can laugh about it. TikTok is a Chinese app, obviously. I've gone through hell on there making fun of her. I guess they need her to win so she can invade Taiwan. But, but for whatever reason, there's a lot of censorship around making fun of that side. Well, we know the reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not on Twitter. So
What's interesting as we're talking here and I'm talking to you, so much of what I see of you on Twitter, you're in your Kamala Harris persona, right? You're doing the voice and everything. But when I'm talking to you, you don't sound anything like her
thank
at
you for
all.
saying that because everyone's been telling me, yeah, you kind of, when I look at you, you look like her and your laugh starts to sound like her. And I'm like, oh my God, don't tell me that.
Yeah. So no, I feel like you are your own person, but you really you sort of just turn it on. It's like you press a button and you're her.
It just comes out of nowhere at this point. My voice can just automatically tremble. And, it's really about the cadence, right? She says a bunch of nonsense in a very condescending way, and she nods at you like you should be gobbling it up, right?
Right there. That's what I'm talking about. Like unbelievable. You just snap right into it. So somebody though, the origin of this is that somebody on social media, a fan of yours, actually heard it, right? Had like heard a little bit of like Kamala in your voice and said, "Hey, you should try that." Do I have that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing totally different stuff on TikTok. I was really just for lack of a better term, like shits and giggles. I downloaded it during the pandemic. We were bored out of our minds. Everyone's home with the kids. I was still working, but TikTok was really where it was at that time during the pandemic, social media in general. And just one of the followers was like, you kind of sound like Kamala Harris in this video. And so I responded to it. You can respond to comments on some of these platforms. And I just attempted an impression. And I don't even think it was that good, but that video totally blew up.
Kamala Harris speaks in a more condescending tone. Okay. She says a lot of things without saying a lot of things. Okay. There's usually a laugh involved. I don't know where the laugh comes in.
And then I saw that there was like such a huge market for it, but nobody's really doing it. I didn't see anybody at that point doing it yet because it was still 2020.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna like roll with this a little bit. There's definitely some content here. I started looking at her speeches, and one thing led to another. And then Ezra Levant, and I shout him out like everywhere I go now because I truly feel like he was so amazing to me. But he's the CEO of Rebel News. And he contacted me directly, and he was like, the cackle just makes me giggle. We're a smaller group, but we would love to sign you on and just continue doing exactly what you're doing. Just keep making fun of her on the speeches, keep making the clips. And it was great. They really kind of honed my talent. I got better with it. The impression got better. The laugh got better. And his team was really great. And that's when I really started taking it up a notch. So before it was like I was doing verbatim. I was just doing the cackle. I was just saying exactly what she said, mimicking her. And then I kind of made the impression my own, where I added some stuff. I started noticing little things that she would do. And then I just started like making it really satire, like making fun of myself, poking at her, jabbing at her in my own little, like political expressive way. So, it really just over time, I think it genuinely morphed into what it is now. It was definitely not this good in the beginning. I have no idea how anyone could say that it was good in the beginning. I didn't like it at all. When I look back, I kind of cringe. Sometimes I don't like reposting the old stuff that I did because I don't feel like it's up to par as to how I have the impression now. But yeah, that is how it started. It was just a random thing. And sometimes these things happen best spontaneously.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how long ago was that then?
It's like 2020 to 2021. It was like right around that time. Yeah, it was between when I just started and somebody was like, hey, you should do this. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. So 3 to 4 years ago, and it's really developed, and you've like sort of, fine-tuned it all over that time. So that's amazing. I mean, I think right now, like I can't see anyone doing anything better out there. I haven't seen that, right? It's so spot on, right? I mean, the laugh too, really, I mean, you really nail it.
Well. I
knew this day would come. I knew it would come, and I felt it in my ovaries. And I'll tell you something. I didn't think that sticking all those needles in that Biden doll would help, but here I am. We're gonna have so much fun. Now, I've been a little busy since the news broke, and I was galvanizing with many donors. And I asked my good friend Jean-Claude Van Damme Pierre to help me with my acceptance speech. So here goes nothing. Oh, say, can you see? Okay. By the dawn's early light. Jean-Claude, I don't want to talk about dawn in the speech. It's okay, I think you're confused. Yeah, hanging around Joe just really fucked you up. All right, I'm gonna do this my way, all right? I got this far. Okay. America. And Willie. Get ready. Because it is time to unburden what has been.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, I was reading a New York Times story a couple of weeks ago, and it was talking about SNL, the upcoming season of SNL, and like who's playing who on the upcoming season. I guess they mentioned Maya Rudolph is returning, but Maya Rudolph is fine and all. She does it. It's nice, but yeah. I mean, it's not even close to yours.
It's like vanilla. It's a little vanilla. I love Maya Rudolph. I don't want to be one of those people that doesn't support, who they, like the actors and actresses just because of political standpoints. I don't want to be one of those. There's only a small group of people that fit in that category, and those are the ones that are just openly hateful. But she's incredibly talented and she's funny as hell. She got an Emmy for this impression. So, like I said, like I have my own style. Her style is incredibly vanilla. I also think she's kind of been hired to try to portray Kamala as, this fun, cool aunt with this like really joyful energy. And there's another impressionist that, kind of started around the same time as me. I didn't really see anybody that's really doing it. But when I discovered, like eventually at some point you do come across the other people that are trying it. I know of 3 total. I'm friends with 2 of them. But one of them that does Kamala, and everyone has a completely different style. That's what I like about it. We all have our own styles, and we kind of all have the mannerisms down in our own little way. Because Kamala, let's face it, she's very animated. But one of them is also incredibly vanilla, makes her look good. And I noticed that's the impression that CNN is trying to push, Yahoo News, the big mainstream names. I think her name is Allison Reese. All love and support to her. I genuinely, I'm in competition with myself in my own lane in life. But I did notice that, the ones that are taking front and center are the ones that are not making fun of her or her policies. They're just, vanilla, cute, something, like they're kind of like walking on eggshells around the stuff that she says, not making her look dumb at all or anything that, or like, chaotic. They're kind of trying to really, really just make her look relatable, likable. And like I said, Maya Rudolph is busy with this like fun, cool aunt impression of her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disappointing that SNL refuses to really go after everybody, because that's the way it should be. You should just be no holds barred.
For a while they did do that. I don't know. It's been a while since they did that, but they don't do it anymore. But
they don't do it anymore. I mean, they do it one-sided though. They obliterate Trump all the time.
Yes, but they don't go after everybody like evenly. I think who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I think at one point they did do that.
I think so too. It was really genuinely funny. I mean, there's so many episodes that Trump was on the show. Right. I just think they're doing a disservice to themselves because, like I said, I find there are some Trump impressionists that are phenomenal, and obviously they're skewering him, they're making fun of him. One of my favorites is Sean. I do debates with him, and even though he's pro-Trump, still there's things that he says and the way that he says them that are hysterical. We have to be able to laugh at that.
This is the guy who you did the debate with the other night, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah, so
awesome.
that was very funny, and he does a really good impression, I thought. But he totally makes fun of him, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously he's a supporter, but he's not. It's not. He's not like a blind supporter where he can't see anything to be made fun of in Trump. Obviously, there's lots to be made fun of there, but I thought he was good.
Yeah, yeah, he's good.
So, but when I think about the best sort of the best Trump impression I've seen out there, it seems like Shane Gillis to me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely like top three.
Oh my
Him and Trump
God.
there, but
So
Shane's amazing.
and sometimes he dresses up and really looks like Trump, and I'm like, well, it's
When he
amazing.
came out on Kill Tony and he was standing and he was just doing the clap like the way Trump does, I
Yeah.
lost. I was like, that is an impression. And you don't even open your mouth and you just have the energy. And
Yes.
that's what I try to embody myself because
Yes.
Shane's up there. But that's really part of the you have to sell it like that. You have to genuinely see it. So sometimes even when people are talking to me on the Zoom and I'm doing the impression, I find my face morphing as if I'm listening as Kamala Harris because she does this thing where she's like always nodding,
Yeah.
looking annoyed, telling you to like continue, but really she's about to interrupt you. There's just so much around her that's fascinating.
I agree. You really capture the physical aspect of it as well. I think if SNL really wanted to be like edgy this year and do something wild, they would hire you and Shane Gillis to do impressions, right? That would really be awesome.
That would be
So
incredible. Yeah.
that would be, and Shane Gillis has a history with SNL, obviously, and he went
Yep.
back and finally hosted after that whole debacle. But that would be wild, and that's what it should be. I mean, like the election atmosphere as it is already like bonkers, right? Like they should make it
100%.
really bonkers on SNL and bring it like, I know Maya
100%. It would bring so much levity to the situation, and people want to see this. There's so much going on politically and, just around the world. I don't think I've ever actually seen the news cycle this insane this often. Like before, it used to be a breaking major news story that rolled for weeks. I forgot that Trump was almost assassinated like 3 weeks ago because
I know.
and that's by design, right? So there's so much going on. Everyone I feel like is just kind of stressed out. Sometimes I'm even talking to fellow podcasters, social media content creators, and I'll talk to them and they're like, I had to take a step away like for a couple of days. It's just too much. It's too overwhelming. It hasn't been underwhelming in a very, very long time. Like it has not been a slow news cycle at all in the past. Like it's breaking news everywhere.
Yeah.
And, so, and it's not, and sometimes it's not even breaking news. Like Benny Johnson, God bless him, but everything freaking post is breaking news, breaking news. Like, oh my God, guys. Not everything is a breaking news story, but that adds that cortisol drug effect when you're scrolling through social media and everything is so overwhelming. Can you imagine how powerful a real, like actually funny debate poking at these real issues would be on the largest platform like SNL? I mean, I really have hope that it will be brought back to its glory days. Comedy is like one thing that everybody can look forward to at the end of the day of all of this stuff. No matter what, something's going to happen. Someone's going to get elected. There will still continue to be wars and whatever, but comedy is like, it
I know.
just,
It's sort of sacred. And just to get back to SNL going hard on both sides. I mean, for years, Daryl Hammond and his impression of Bill Clinton. I mean, they hammered Bill Clinton. I mean, Bill Clinton, a Democrat. Like that's what I was talking about when they've done it on both sides. Obviously Will Ferrell with George W. Bush was hilarious, but they went hard on Clinton, and they just don't do that anymore at all. It's a shame, but you should be on there. So here's my question: SNL has not reached out to you because I'm like kind of shocked that you're right there in New York. You're right there.
I am. I'm right in New York. I know. I saw that Vanity Fair did an article, and I was in it. It said these are the top 3 contenders for SNL. So it was myself and 2 other impressionists. That's the ones that I told you about that I know of.
Yeah.
I'm lying. One of them was the impressionist, and one was Maya Rudolph. And in the little excerpt that they wrote about me, they were very respectful, but they said, Esther doesn't seem that she sides with Kamala Harris. She's very critical of her view, and they left it at that. And I feel like that right there just tells SNL everything they need to know.
Right.
They obviously support her. There's obviously people, in tears up there saying like, hey, we're not going to make fun of her. We're also in a very different climate in terms of comedy as well. Like you can't really say everything anymore today. And she's incredibly she doesn't even allow people to make fun of her. I think she fired a lot of her staff.
Yes.
She doesn't like any kind of criticism. So I feel like the powers above are also the ones that are like, hey, you better not touch her. And people are afraid to touch her. She's a Indian or Black woman, whatever it is, but a minority of some sort, right? It's a woman. So a lot of people are afraid to even go after her. I don't have those scruples. I'm not afraid to go after anybody, and I'm not going after anyone. I just feel like I'm just taking it, just making fun and adding levity to the situation.
Yeah.
That's it.
At the end of the day, you're just being funny and having fun
Yeah,
with it,
yeah.
which it seems like it wasn't that long ago. I don't know how old you are, but it wasn't that long ago that that's kind of what everyone was doing, like at some point, like we like veered off off the highway into this other thing where you like one side is off limits. They're so fragile.
I'm 36. I grew up, it was sticks and stones, may break my bones, but words would never hurt me. Now it's words or literal violence. And I
Yes.
don't understand where we ended. And sometimes, with my kids, it's very difficult because when I'm raising them, in my mind, I'm like, okay, just like stop being, so what? Like he said that to you. And it's in school. It's like, no, 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 this is really serious.
Right.
Like words are really powerful. Yes, they are. But when did we get this extreme? When did it happen where we were like, listen, toughen up, life's not fair, to life is going to be fair. Otherwise, we're going to throw everyone around you in prison. That's what I feel like it is now. It's insanity to me. I'll tell you a quick story since we do have time. This was years ago, but I had taken my son to a second grade field trip. I was a chaperone.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there with them and we were at a museum, and I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this. It really stayed with me. But my son was sitting second grade, and there was a really, really old, there was like a very old man standing, and we were all kind of sitting like on this ledge. Everyone was like having their little snacks, whatever, having some water. And I had nudged my son. I don't care what other parents are doing. I don't care what other kids are doing, but I quietly nudged at him and I said in his ear, I'm like, it would be really nice if you got up because that old man, doesn't have anywhere to sit. This is part of discipline. I'm trying to, teach my child respect for the elderly as I was taught.
Yeah.
The teacher's assistant that was sitting there had, overheard this. She was sitting and she looked over and she looked at my son and she goes, sweetie, you don't have to do it though if you don't want to. I know you're tired and you could stay seated if you want. There's other seats over there. I looked at her like the New Yorker came out of me so fast. I'm a chaperone. I'm on my best behavior over here. It's a second grade classroom. Everyone's kind of on this fake behavior, like Sebastian Maniscalco says. And I looked over and I'm like, are you out of your mind? That's not what I'm teaching my child, to put his own needs before others. There is a time and place when you teach that. Right now, it's about his comfort doesn't matter right now. It's about respect for the elderly. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. You have to allow children to understand that it's not all about them. Today, we have a very narcissistic climate where kids are genuinely taught like your feelings matter over anything else. Your life matters more than somebody else's. You're star-spangled awesome. And the same exact reaction that I had when I had signed my son up to like soccer and everyone got a trophy. I'm like, what the hell is this? I come from Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, hardcore Russia. Like we did not have that. The best kid wins, everyone else sucks. Like that's the way it was. And that's it. That's just, you have to have a winner's mentality in life, period. End of story. That's like me crying to you and saying, SNL, I demand, I'm going to sue them. They have to pick me because I think that I'm the best. No, that's not the way it works.
Yeah. So that's funny. You just went right into a Russian accent too. So you're like doing another impression there. Are you doing other impressions besides Kamala Harris?
Not yet, but what I did on TikTok before, I was doing a lot of lip syncing because I'm really, really good at it. So I definitely played with a lot of different characters. So, I grew up in the inner city in New York City. We have a very rich Black culture. I grew up with a lot of Black Latin friends. And there's this guy, Lucas Lopez Ville. He does incredible impressions of his Cuban father. And I lip synced some of those. And I mean, like my cadence is all there, but I didn't want to do it with my own voice and, my own accents because it's so much funnier. I know that lip syncing is not, it's not original, which is maybe why, it's gone viral and it's done well, but I'm not going to have a talent agency, recruit me for lip syncing. Some of them do really well. But I make sure the lip syncing is perfection. It's on point, down to the breathing. And I've definitely been able to play around with like a Jim Carrey impression. I've been able to play around with like the Cuban dad, the immigrant parents. I definitely have the Russian accent, broken English down just because of my parents. So I definitely want to, see what happens with the Kamala. And I don't think it's over for me in the comedy, in the comedy industry. I love stand up. I'm a big fan of a lot of these big guys. So we shall see. I haven't really tried an original impression just like I have for Kamala. Maybe I should, because some people are like, you should just try it. You tried the Kamala and it just exploded.
Yeah.
So maybe there, there's other stuff in my future. We'll see.
I mean, look, you're doing amazing with it. And I hope you can ride this wave for as long as possible, you know?
I'd like to ride it only until November. I know that it would probably be the most lucrative thing for me to continue this. It's definitely great money. It's a good side hustle. I'm humble. I think everyone has their own style, but genuinely speaking, between me and you, Andrew, come on, I take the cake. I'm the best.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it's not even close. It's unbelievable. Sometimes I'm watching it and I'm like, am I
if you close your
watching
eyes, if you listen, yeah, it sounds like her. I sometimes will listen and I'm like,
Yes.
yes, that's the one. It sounds like
Yes,
her.
if you listen, but even sometimes when I'm watching you, and this is why I think you'd be so great on SNL, because they have an amazing wardrobe and hair department.
Yeah.
And they like you, I've seen you've done the pearl necklace and like you've put some clothes on to look like her. But I feel like if you had SNL, the power of SNL, like preparing you, like you would become her. Even watching you and just listening to you, sometimes I'm like, am I watching an impression of Kamala Harris, or when I watch Kamala Harris, am I watching an impression of her doing, of you doing an impression of Kamala Harris? You know what I mean? It's like that sort of like, mind bending.
Yeah, let me be clear. Let me be clear. As a woman, there is a balance that needs to be struck between being tough and, just being a raging bitch.
And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch. Turn that off.
Being aggressive in policy and being a foreign cunt. Being a national treasure, but also being a demon. And we gotta get that balance right. Okay? And we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it right. All right. Moving forward. It's not just about this administration. You gotta be woke. The woker, the weaker, the better. You have to think about what it means to be woke, awake, right? That's what we want. Right there. All up in there. Just awake. Yeah. Okay, well, you can vote for Donald Trump if you want, but I'm speaking. You better get scared.
Well, after 4 years, you kind of start to emulate that person, whether you want to or not. So
Yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned your kids. How many? You have 3 kids, right?
3 children, yes.
Now, do you ever, when you're like talking to your kids or parenting them, do you ever accidentally just slip into a Kamala Harris voice and do it?
It's not accidental. I definitely mess with my oldest. Because when I say the word salads, he's only 11, but he's like, what the hell are you trying to say? And it's hysterical to me because I don't give him any context. And I just start saying like, I said to him, like, unburden what has been. I actually have that video where I'm just talking to my kids and my husband, and I'm just saying random Kamala shit. And all of them were just like, what? Like, what the hell are you trying to say? So I always found that hysterical. It doesn't like just randomly happen, but she has damaged my natural laugh. Sometimes I just hear it too. And I'm like, oh, like it's a little bit of the impression. I think it's a workplace hazard. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen because I do it so often that your own, like, I can't even help it. I can't control it. I'm going to try to work. I don't remember what my original laugh is supposed to sound like anymore.
Wow.
That's what I should say.
Wow. You're in deep. So that's the other thing. You have a full-time job, right? That you're doing all the time. Now, have the people at work, did they know what's going on? Like you're so viral at this point. I feel like they would have to have seen you, right?
How do I say this in like a delicate fashion? So I have a few coworkers, of course, that I'm close with that they definitely know that I've been doing this. Not all, I didn't volunteer the information because I didn't want, I'm obviously very brazen on social media. Like I'll make fun of her policies, and I know politics is a very, very sensitive subject. Now, for me personally, I can easily get along with a liberal, with a, it doesn't matter what you are politically. I can get along with you at work because, first of all, I've been working since I was 11, and I learned a long time ago, you respect everyone you work with. You don't have to be friends with them. You go there, you respect everyone no matter what, because you are there for the sake of the company. Now, that's my mindset. I cannot project that onto everybody. So I decided not to voluntarily tell people about it. But when people did, little by little, and I'm like I said, not everybody knows, but the ones that did discover my page, the reaction was just like, and they saw it from like, so my old manager, she's not my manager anymore, but her husband is a full-blown conservative. Sometimes in marriages you have that, right? Like you'll have a husband that can be this and a wife that can be that, whatever. I don't know how the hell they happen to make it work. I guess true love is true love. But she goes, my husband is a hardcore conservative, and he saw you on Gutfeld. She's like, what the hell is going on? Like, do you have a double life? She's like, I was arguing with him that like, it's not you. And then I was watching and I'm like, hang on a second. It is her. Like they're both Esther. She was questioning like whether or not it was actually me. And it was on the TV screen. I worked that day. I remember doing that show, like a limo came and picked me up and drove me to Fox headquarters. Sorry, it wasn't on Gutfeld, although I did do his show. It was Tucker Carlson. She's like, my husband's a big Tucker Carlson fan. And she's just like, how? And then I kind of wanted to see, nobody else at work said anything after that. And I was like, I noticed that like, it really is all about an echo chamber and perspective. A lot of these people are watching CNN full blown, like around the clock. And that is their prerogative. They can do that. But that's how I kind of managed to keep this like on, hush, hush. But my job is very, they are very flexible. I have a remote position. I work in administration. It's very tedious. It's a lot of paperwork. And that's probably part of the reason why I stuck around with the TikTok stuff. If I'm being honest with you, I'm not patient facing anymore. I loved being, patient facing in the hospital. This was probably my favorite part of the job, talking to the patients, making them laugh, helping them feel better, making fun of the doctors behind their back, whatever it is. It's just my personality. And I left that to be closer to my kids, to kind of be home, mom being home and being able to work while the kids are, doing homework is an ideal situation for my family life. So, they don't know about it. Not all of them do. But, the ones that do, they're just like, I think your impression is pretty funny. And some of them are supporters of hers. So we keep it very respectful. I will not attack them for it. I don't say like, how the hell can you vote for her? I'm not trying to lose my job, and I'm not trying to ruffle feathers. For the people that support her, in my mind at this point, I'm like, if at this point you support her openly and you're educated and you know what you're saying, it's not my place to change your mind. But if you're watching the impression, you have to know how ridiculous she is. But I guess for people, it's the lesser of two evils. So, this allows me to kind of keep myself sane because the job is very tedious, right? So it's all paperwork. So it's a nice balance that I figured out for myself here. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's encouraging to hear that some of those people are Kamala Harris supporters and they're still finding it funny. Like, to me, that is like, at least we're in such a polarized time. Like most people can't even laugh at their side of things, And
I respect it immensely because and I tell them all the time too, like I find stuff from the, Republican side and the conservative side that's hysterical. I also kind of like bash them sometimes when they start engaging severely in cancel culture, when they start engaging severely in like hypocritical stuff. And I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? This is not what we do. This is not what you're supposed to do. Like, it's like two children, right? I always tell my oldest, stop stooping to their levels. They're 5 and 6. They don't know better. You should know better. And that's really what I try to tell people, that, I really respect and admire my coworkers for that. I really do. The ones that are genuinely decent like this, because they know that if they make enough noise, and they run to HR and they start talking crazy, crazy shit, I don't know what I don't know what my job would do, but they might just say like, hey, listen, you're ruffling feathers. We don't like it. Bye, sayonara. It's not a risk for me. I'll just get another job. I believe in myself, in my talents, but I'd rather not, I'm like comfortable. Sure. I just want to, that's why I'm not like with a megaphone at work, like, hey guys, follow me on social media. I just kind of keep it to myself.
Really, you don't need to, because you're getting enough followers.
I can't believe though that more people didn't discover it. Like, to answer your question, I'm genuinely also surprised. it's kind of like an ego hit too. Like there's one side of my life that's like, oh my God, you're everywhere. And then I come into work and I'm like, you guys don't know who I am? Like, do you have any idea what, like, I'm being praised all across the world right now.
Yeah. Well, I think what the point you made about the echo chamber could very well be it, right? Because
Yeah.
the Tucker Carlson appearance you're talking about, that was all the way back, I think, in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, that can't be in 2016. So that was 2 years ago. When he was right before he got fired from Fox.
Okay.
Yeah, it was only when I started all of this. It was right before he got fired from Fox. I remember it because I was talking to his producers about possibly coming back and doing something with Tucker. He was so great. And then like a couple of months after, that was that whole Dominion thing, and they got rid of Tucker.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought it was further in the past, but by then I think people really were stuck in echo chambers badly at that point. But I think with Twitter, as you're talking about, Musk has freed that up. I can't tell you how many people. So I've been on Twitter. I was very much on during the old regime, and I, didn't even know it, but was sort of locked in an echo chamber. And I didn't realize it until once Musk took over. I started seeing tweets from all these people that I'd never seen before. Very interesting people. Some people that I've ended up having on this podcast, and it's been great. It's really, I think, helped to destroy the echo chamber. People still have to, I think there's still, you still need to use it. If you're not using it at all, you might still remain stuck in that. But I think that's certainly a possibility with why some of these people just have no clue,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Listen, I want to talk about the process that you have for these videos. Some of them I feel like are maybe 2 minutes is the sort of the longest you go. Maybe you've gone a little longer than that on a couple, but sometimes, in the 50, 60-second range to 2 minutes. Tell me about the process of how you put these together. Do you do a lot of takes? How's that all work?
If I'm being honest with you, Andrew, I'm very like, I realize like when I do the improv and I just go with it and I'm spontaneous, that's the stuff that works the best for her. Some of my best stuff was during the debate, like the one-liners that could just come out of my mouth. Like it's so much more natural. And I do the exact same thing when I do her speeches. So, right. So my process is very simple. I put up the camera, I do everything, I get dressed up. If I'm doing like a hardcore skit, I mostly don't write the lines. I just start going into it and then I'll edit it at the end. And, I'll cut pieces out. I'll, sometimes re-record, I'll add in, but really the majority of it is just turning on record, getting into the performance, not even looking at the camera. I always look as if I'm looking at the audience.
Yeah.
And it's hysterical because sometimes when I'm doing the editing, I will literally just watch a little piece of what she says. And then I'm doing my piece. And it's the spontaneity that makes it so funny because you could see it on my face that I'm so unamused, but like she says the same stuff over and over again. And sometimes I'm just like, all right. And like in her voice, responding to how annoyed I am already at the impression and saying something like completely off the bar. So it's worked. I feel like my own natural sarcasm has kind of infiltrated the impression. So it is a lot of improv. I definitely have written stuff before. If it's a much more, like the debate, we definitely prepared a little bit more for that in advance. But the first debate me and Sean did, we literally just met on the screen for like 2 minutes. Like, yeah. So that was for Philadelphia radio, WPHC. It was amazing. It was very, very last minute. And it was also very like spontaneous. We just threw something together and it did so well. People loved it. And from that, we started just doing more and more debates. But Sean was like, he has a very similar story. He started doing a Trump impression with his friends. I think they were just like sitting, hanging out, shooting the shit. And his friends were like, dude, that's really good. And he's like, what was? And he's like, you sound exactly like Trump. So the fact that he has the exact same thing and he's such a patriot, he's so awesome. When we started talking to each other, it just started flowing. And it's his hatred for Kamala that's natural. And my obvious, sarcastic approach to, filleting her when I'm doing the act, it just kind of worked. So, we're both pro-Trump at this point. And the spontaneity of it was just beautiful. So that's my process. I really, really try to stay spontaneous with all of the skits. Sometimes even at home too, I try to stay on a schedule, but it's crazy being a mom, having a full-time job. Yeah. She'll say something ridiculous or she'll have like a ridiculous speech. I throw on the pearls, I throw on the blazer. Sometimes you'll notice in my videos, like makeup's not done, my hair is all over the place, but I don't look at that. I'm just very like, the people want it. This is what needs to happen because it's trending right now. And it still works. Like I've had people tell me your production is not that professional. You need to do, you need to work on a better green screen, all this stuff. And I'm like, listen, this is what you're going to get for now. If I have a big studio budget
Yes.
that wants to go ahead and do this, but that's not what I'm selling. I'm selling, it's the talent. It's
Yeah.
relating to people. It's the message. It's what I'm trying to say. And I genuinely feel like we are in a world of everything has to be bam, bam, bam. Every like content creators, dentists, lawyers have to make content now and
Yeah.
project themselves, and they have to make it with professional equipment and all this. And I'm just like, I would love for the look to be a little bit better and all that, but spontaneous is where I've always mastered things, and that's what I'm going to continue doing.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that's part of the charm of your thing sometimes, and that's why I wanted to ask about it. I didn't know like how, how sort of produced it is even on your end, but sometimes it just looks like you just grabbed the phone and just
That's
kind of
exactly
did the
what I
first
did.
thing that
Exactly
came
what
to you.
happens. Yeah.
And I think that that's like there's like a rawness to it that's good. But sometimes I'm like, wow, I can't tell if like you've pre-written it because it's funny, you know what I mean? But you're just pulling it up and improving it, huh?
Yeah, most of it is improv, if I'm being honest
Wow.
with you.
And have you had any improv training at all? Like, have you gone to, I mean, in New York City, Upright Citizens Brigade, I'm sure. Have you heard of Upright Citizens Brigade?
I mean, listen, I've heard about them. It was
Yeah.
never, it was just never in the books for me. Just being, and there's so many great comics, so many women that do this, but for me personally, I never, and I always loved it, like I said. But like, for example, when this all started, my husband's like, you can't go on tour, because I've had offers to be like, listen, you need to start doing stand up. You need to
Yeah.
take this act on the road, especially now it's election time. I'm very flattered to even be considered for something like that, but I have to be, realistic, and I'm not taking my kids on the road with me. I'm also not going to leave them behind. My husband, there's not a shot in hell he's letting me go on my own. So it's just one of those things where I was like, listen, I know I can do this. I'm going to try and see if I can do it in my own speed, in my own way. I don't have any professional comedy or acting training,
Wow.
but I've been told that, you definitely have a knack for it. And I really, really think Trump is one of the people that I admire in this aspect. He really gave me a lot of confidence just listening to his speeches. And I think confidence is where a lot of this stems. If you can, get on a stage, or if you can just, turn a camera on, and if you're confident enough in your own craft and your own self, and if you look at everybody else doing it and you genuinely believe that like you are not any worse than any of these other people that you see, and that is the mindset that I started leading with. I didn't care about the appearance much. I didn't care about the production quality so much. I didn't care about if it was going to be funny or not, which is why the improv I kept on doing it, because I'm like, listen, for whatever reason, this is working. I'm going to continue doing what's working. Whenever I resonate with people, that's what works. And when I applied that mindset and consistency, like I said, I always think of Trump. He says, you can't give up. I've seen so many talented people just not get to where they deserve because they gave up, because it got hard. So I said, like, even now I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm going to do with all of this, the attention. I don't know what's coming my way, but I have to believe that I'm doing something correct. And a lot of it is just from this confidence that I developed of, listen, I don't care what people say about me. I don't care about the trolls in the comments. If anything, they give me life. I love that I affect people this badly, where I have liberals sending me things like death threats, and because I'm
Really?
making fun of. Oh
Really?
yeah. I mean, not like that, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna kill you, but like they say disgusting things like, I hope this happens to you. I hope this, you know, may your daughter get raped and not be able to get an abortion, like the things that they say. And I'm like, you're just a miserable psychopath. I don't respond to that. Like, I don't entertain it. But going back to like the confidence aspect of it, you have to be confident in anything you choose to do. And sometimes you really have to fake it till you make it. And I use that a lot in life. When I was a brand new nurse in the hospital, I had no idea what was going on. School did not prepare me for anything. That's why they give you a nurse to hold your hand for the first 6 months, like if you're on a critical unit. And I remember just having that, I remember asking like one of the seasoned nurses, I'm like, I don't know what to do because they said that we don't have this IV set anymore. And I remember like being in a panic, and she looked at me and she's like, you figure it out. And she was like a Jamaican woman. And she's just like, just fuck, like, this is what we do here. You save, like, doesn't matter about all this. This is all extra. And, everything that I've ever done in life, whether it's having a child, a mom is not a mom until she has a child for the first time. So I've applied all of that life experience to what I'm doing here. This is a brand new industry, a lot of sharks in this industry. I've definitely made some mistakes. I don't know always the right thing to say. I don't always, probably do things on social media the right way either. But so far it's gotten me to where I am. And I think that I'm definitely doing something right. So
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You're obviously sort of you're affecting so many people, and I think positively. Like what I'm seeing of you is a lot of applause and not necessarily the death threats. But I can't believe those are coming too. That's a shame.
I
But
mean, we
whatever.
got
It's
to take
also
the bad
online
with
too.
the good. But yeah, yeah. But it's mostly positive. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
especially on X. I definitely feel like I found a much bigger community that appreciates the content, definitely on board, shares it. Meta is a huge echo chamber. Like I see the same exact accounts every single day when I, their algorithm is set up very differently. And TikTok, like I said, that's a Chinese communist app. They genuinely push out stuff that's kind of weird. They
yeah,
don't push out Trump for sure. And like I said, it's because they probably want weak leadership so they can invade Taiwan. And it's the things like that I say that gets people to kind of like to chuckle because we don't know if it's true, but if it's if it's sometimes if
possible.
you say it, yeah,
Yeah,
say it probably might be true.
yeah. Listen, you mentioned your husband a couple of times. What does he think of all of this?
He's definitely just like floored. He's more of like the reserve type. Our personalities, the opposites attract kind of thing. Um, but yeah, he thinks it's hysterical. He owns a barbershop on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, and there was a couple of like situations that were genuinely hysterical. So there was like a guy in his chair, and he's cutting his hair, and the guy's scrolling through my videos, and he's like, "Dude, have you seen this chick? Like, she's hysterical." And my husband's like, he smirks and he looks over at his like coworkers, and he's like, "That's my wife." And the guy's like, "Yeah, sure, buddy, that's my wife too." And he's like, "Dude, I have a picture hanging with her and my kids in the office." And like, so that happened a couple of times, and it's always been funny, especially for him, because he's like, the way these people view you, like they actually think you're a real celebrity. He's had like clients tell him, like, I have to hang out with your wife. I got to meet her. Please, like, and so for some people, they're really making it bigger than it is. So for him, it's very overwhelming. He's just like, oh my God, like this is
Yeah.
really, really crazy. But he thinks it's funny. Believe it or not, he's not really in the political, like he's not into any of this stuff. He's
Wow.
genuinely doesn't like the energy that this space has created. Not me personally, but all this back and forth. He's working. So I remember like, I'll be telling him like everything that happened that day. So he comes home and we have the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, so this happened and Trump said this. And Jean-Claude Van Damme Pierre came out and said this at the press conference. Like, so I give him the rundown. Like I'm like his social media scroll because he's busy all day from
Yeah.
morning to night, and he listens to it, he takes it in and he goes, "Wow, that's crazy. All right, well, do I still have to go to work tomorrow and pay the bills?" And I said, "Yes, that's still happening." And he's like, "All right, so I'm going to go take a shower and go to bed because this doesn't affect my day to day. I'm going to let you obsess over this," because he feels like it just takes too much energy.
Yeah.
But he is pro Trump, and we always talk about this stuff, but it's very overwhelming for him, and that's just the honest truth. He doesn't really know yet how to navigate some of the attention. And he always kind of tells me like, "Hey, listen, don't forget about me and the kids. That's all I ask of you. Keep going. If this is what you want to chase, I'm here. I support you." But there was a long time ago that he really, he was one of the doubters. He was laughing, and I manifest a lot. And I had told him during the pandemic, we were outside, we were like having a glass of wine. It was during lockdown, so we had to deal with each other like 24/7. And it's probably the first time in our marriage that we had to do that. But it was after probably 5 arguments that day, and we had a glass of wine. And I'm like to him, "I'm not gonna stop until I meet Trump. Like I'm gonna hang out with Trump at Mar-a-Lago." I said those exact words 2 years before it happened. And he was laughing and he's just like, "You've always been such a dreamer, babe. Like you're just too much. Like your head is in the clouds of where you think this is gonna go." But now when we talk about this, he's genuinely like looked at me and he goes, "You inspire me because you made me believe in manifestation."
Yeah.
So now when we talk about this kind of stuff and he sees paid offers and he sees the numbers growing and he sees ad revenue and he sees that I was able to kind of make this lucrative in addition to doing something I'm passionate about, it's very much taken like a respectful toll in our marriage where he's like, "You know what? I really admire this because the kids are looking at you and they're seeing the consistency that you've applied to this for 4 years without making a cent." And my oldest always says like, "Mom, this is incredible. Like, I know this is hard. It's not easy to go viral and consistently be popular, yeah, trending." So for us as a family at this point, it's just genuinely like, "You know what? I'm proud of you. Continue doing this. At the very least, it teaches a great lesson to other people that you can do anything you set your mind to." Because he laughed in my face after a couple of glasses of wine. He's like, "Yeah, we're going to hang out at Mar-a-Lago with Trump." Okay. Like,
Okay.
Whatever you say.
Okay. So first of all, interesting that, he's coming around and seeing like you actually make some of this stuff come true. These predictions that you made, you've sort of, it's not like just a prediction, you actually saw it through, right? But secondly, You actually did go to Mar-a-Lago and hung
I
out with
did.
Trump. Tell that story. That's crazy. How'd that happen?
So yeah, I had this and this is exclusive for you, Andrew. Honestly, I haven't shared this with anyone.
Oh, nice.
So I had gotten a message from this guy. He had like a really, really big account. So I was very skeptic that this was like even a real deal. There's a lot of scammers out there. You never know if anyone's even the real deal. Um, and he's like a car dealer and he's a, I believe he's like a very, very luxury car dealer, like the Lamborghinis, the Porsches, whatever, the really, really crazy, the McLarens. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But he reached out because he actually is a friend of Trump's. He's a member at Mar-a-Lago.
Hmm.
And he was like to me, listen, I'm going to this Halloween party this year. I've been following you for a while. He's like, I'm very like best of the best for myself. He's like, you're it. You're the best Kamala. I want the best Kamala on my arm when I go to this party. He was like, would you be interested? Like, I'll take care of everything. I just want you to come down to Florida. I know you're in New York. And this was at 1 o'clock in the morning. This was exactly like 2 years after I manifested this. And I walked upstairs. I woke my husband up, like shaking him vigorously. I was like, you need to look at this message. So he immediately was like, you're getting too excited over nothing. You don't even know if this guy's the real deal. It's months out, it's months away. So I did this thing where I said to him, absolutely, please let me know more closer to the date. Radio silence from the guy. It was like 5, 6 months out still, but I was so excited. And for those 5, 6 months out, I was just like this. I'm like, listen, I really want this to happen. It's just an honor to be able to meet that man. I just wanted to meet him. I really, who doesn't want to go to Mar-a-Lago and just see what the fuss is about, So, and it happened. He reached out to me as promised, everything. It was the best of the best makeup artists, and I remember him wanting to do like a whole makeup look for me and me wanting to meet Trump looking my best. And I was like to him, we kind of argued a little bit because I was like, I don't need the wrinkles and I don't need to look like I have my neck hanging down. I will wear a suit. I was like, but I am the impression. I promise you. I'm like, you will not be disappointed. I'm like, the cadence, the mannerisms, that's what makes it. I could be wearing a garbage bag and I could still look like her. I promise you. So he was very much like, okay, like, I trust you. I trust your creative talent. He looked phenomenal. He dressed up as Biden. He was knocking into shit. He had the sunglasses, the Ray-Bans, like the aviator look. My husband, obviously was like, I would love to also come. And he's very quiet and reserved. So we made him Secret Service. He didn't have to say a word. It was just such a good time. And we met these incredible people. And I will say that Trump, we saw him from a distance. Of course, there's a lot of Secret Service around him at that night. He was with his in-laws. He was with Melania. She's drop dead gorgeous. I remember getting like close enough to her to like just stare at her, just to look at her. And I'm like, wow, like she's just such a beautiful, poised, graceful woman. And the party was a sick time. Everybody was there, had the utmost love and respect for him. He was the freaking DJ the whole time. Like it felt like I was in his house, in his backyard.
Trump
he
was
had
the
this iPad
DJ?
in front of him. Yeah, he has his iPad and he just controls everything from the iPad. And it's like banger after banger. And I remember just standing there thinking like, I wish I could just like go on a ride with Trump in his car because we have the same taste in music. Like this is a New Yorker through and through. He feels like he's one of us, and it was just such a positive energy. The food was phenomenal. Like just the layout, you're hanging out, rubbing elbows with these people. And I couldn't believe I was there. It was beautiful grounds. My husband was just starstruck. He was taking pictures of everything and they allowed cameras and they allow everything, but obviously, they're careful. And I remember at some point Secret Service came up to me and they're like, yeah, listen, go talk to the Russian with the camera. Like that shit's not going to fly. He's on the roof. He's taking, aerial shots of the place. And I told him, I'm like, what are you doing? We're going to get kicked out. And he's like, no, we're not. People have cameras. Like we're not going to be here every day. We're never going to get, we're probably never going to come back here. So it was just such an experience. It was great. And I remember waiting in line to take my picture with him because, everybody there wants to take a picture with him. And one of the Secret Service agents looked at me and he goes, it's about time you got here, Kamala. He's like, I've been following you forever. And it was such a humbling moment.
Yeah.
It's like the world goes full circle because here I'm meeting, in my opinion, the greatest president that we ever had and hopefully the future president. And it's like these random people. And it wasn't just the Secret Service agent. There were just random people in this place that knew me. And I'm just like, it's insane how connected we can be. And, social media definitely has its ups and downs, but when it comes to this aspect of it, like and I always say this, I'm very confident in myself and like, shame on me for saying it. I don't mean it this way, but like, I'm genuinely a nobody in this space. I'm, I come from no professional background. I don't come from any, phone a friend people that are like, hey, take a look at this girl. Like there wasn't really no connections here. I truly branded myself and I just stayed consistent. And if that's my message to people that want to do anything in life, it's just stay consistent and don't listen to people telling you that you're doing it wrong, telling you that, oh, this is not conventional. You have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. Mar-a-Lago itself was proof to me that like, if you stay true to yourself, you'll get to the highest places that you want. And you have to actually see it and speak it into reality. So I don't think that it would have happened for me if I didn't like, physically say the words. And I kept on saying it too. I was like, so now that taught me, like my husband's so funny. He'll see like a Porsche and he goes, I'm going to drive that car next year. And I'm like, that's exactly how this works. Yes. And he's like, don't be ridiculous. And I'm like, no, this is exactly how it works. But you have to work towards getting the Porsche.
Right. You can't just sit there and say a bunch of empty words. You got to do it. But you do have to actually believe that you can do it, right?
You have to believe it. You have to be a little bit delusional. I do see myself on SNL. If I'm being honest with you, I have this image of myself, opening the show. It's never too late. You never know. And I always say, you never know. SNL can absolutely come back to its glory. The things that have happened in the past 4 years alone should show people that like miracles are possible. Anything can happen. Where we were as a world, as a country in 2020, where we were in 2016, where we are now, it will continue to change. When you talk to people that are old, I had the luxury of talking to all these people that are much older than me when I was a nurse, a lot of them at the end of their life. And all of them pretty much gave the same message. Like, you have to live life. Don't sit there and plan for it. You have to do it. Love what you do and just continue. You have to keep going and you will accomplish everything. You have to believe in yourself. Don't speak bad on yourself, basically. So I know I'm going in tangents. I'm sorry. This is how random I am all the time with everyone.
That's all right. I think that's like a lot of great advice and just great life strategy that you sort of gave out there. But I want to go back to Mar-a-Lago for a second. So you actually did get to meet Trump, right? Did you go up to him, and how's that go?
Yeah, we weren't able, sadly, to have like a full-blown conversation like I wanted. But at some point I remember telling him like, we're going to win, Mr. President. And he's like, I hope so. And I was like, no, we will win. And he's like, yeah, we will. He probably doesn't even remember speaking to me, but I cackled the entire night. And I remember him just like throwing it, like he was sitting most of the night. So he would just like throw a chuckle because I was projecting the hell out of that cackle. And it was like, you could hear it even outside. I was just being so obnoxious when I was there because I was so excited, but I think it was great just making him laugh. Yeah.
And how many people are at this thing? There's tons of people, right?
Yeah, there was, I wouldn't say it was genuinely an exclusive event.
When I say tons, I mean like dozens, right? Like it's.
Oh yeah. At least 150 in attendance. Yeah. It was really nice. Everybody was so, the outfits were amazing. The costumes were amazing. It was just genuinely like a high-end Halloween party, and it was the food. I remember walking in and there was like a mountain of lobster tail, a mountain of like shrimp tails. And on the other side, like it was like, the best of the best, basically. It's such a beautiful property too. And it was a great time. It was just a great party. And Trump looked like he was just having the best time in his element. He was like on his iPad the whole time, like
picking songs. Yeah.
He was just like, he's like, I got you guys. Like, I'm going to get, this next one's a banger for everyone. Like, it was just so funny watching him in his element.
And that's an amazing experience. So he did, though. So you talked to him briefly, and he did get to see some of your impression live in person.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah, wow. Definitely. All right, definitely. So we had this whole like little thing where we had a Jean-Pierre, like we had, Sean's girlfriend was dressed as her. He was Biden. We had Secret Service, and we had Hunter Biden. We had a guy come as Hunter. We put some like blow on his nose, like fake blow, a nosebleed, and he walked around with a sex doll, a blow up inflatable sex doll. And so we were like a collective. This, like the press secretary, a fake Biden, Secret Service, and you hear me cackling and you see all of them like we were like, so it was a collective impression, and he just loved everything. He loved every single detail. I remember him even going like this, like cracking up, showing Melania, like, look at Hunter, so it was great. It was genuinely, I was, just honored really to just be in that same space with those people.
Yeah. That's a wild experience. Thanks for telling that story.
Sure. And I plan on going back this Halloween, honestly. I didn't get an invite yet, but I'm going. I'm gonna call him soon.
Can you say the name of the guy who invited you? Is that top secret or?
It's not top secret. I feel so bad even saying this. I don't know his last name. His first name is Sean. His first name is Sean. I don't know his last name. I don't remember it. But yeah, he's a friend of his. He's a friend of his, and he himself is a very successful person. And I think he like trades cars, and he's trying to even like buy some cars from Trump. He's an actual member there, and he's a good friend. And speaking to his like real friends in that space, they all just love him and have the utmost respect. And it's a very, very different picture from like social, like what you see on the news cycle. And I talked to like his guests, obviously more than I was able to talk to him. And the collective opinion is just that, like, if people really knew who he was, how humble he is, how absolutely, like how he thankful and grateful he is for the people that support him, and how loving he is to his family, to his grandchildren. People like, we wish that people saw more of that Trump on television and all this stuff. So, but I have high hopes that, people that really know him, they know what he's all about. So,
yeah. Listen, I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to you brought up your background a little bit about coming from Russia and being an immigrant yourself. Tell me about that. When did you come to the US? And you talked about sort of how you were raised too. I'm just curious, what your parents thought of, I guess, life in Russia versus life in the United States.
So it's like a catch-22 leaving there because, well, I was 4 years old when we came to America. And it was right around the time, 1992, where the Soviet Union pretty much collapsed. So we weren't allowed to leave. If anyone listening doesn't understand and know that, when you're in a communist state, like the government kind of just controls you. So we weren't allowed to leave, and we really wanted to. It wasn't safe. We were in a predominantly Muslim area. I'm from Central Asia. And we were, we're Jewish. So we always were persecuted in that area. My parents wanted to leave for the longest time. So it wasn't safe. That's number one. Number two, it wasn't lucrative. No matter how much money you make, no matter how many hours you work, your government's taking it all. We had very few things. Like I had one doll for me and like all my girl cousins, and we had to share that one toy in shifts. It gives you a huge perspective on life when you come to the West, where variety is everything. The kids get spoiled. I want to even say a little mentally unstable with the amount of variety they have here. That's why we have such a ridiculously ungrateful culture. So it's the absolute, opposite. Some of the stuff is good. Some of the stuff is bad. Like I truly feel like the way we were brought up, I pray to God my kids have even half of that kind of resilience when it comes to life. Because when you grow up like that, it prepares you for a different kind of life in the future. So former Soviet Union collapsed. We came here. Very little money. We were very, very poor. I have two older brothers. My dad came here with his brother and sister and their families, and we all moved into one apartment, 16 of us. Wow. That's the kind of money that we came here with, whatever was in our pockets. And I always say to people, like, this is how excessive it was. You had to leave ASAP. So I don't have a lot of baby pictures of myself. I think I have about 3 or 4. That's it. It was whatever my parents could carry. My mom didn't take her wedding album, her wedding dress. None of those things that you would think. My grandmother was actually responsible for like the picture stuff. If it wasn't for her, we would have nothing. We would have no memorabilia at all of our history of our family. My grandfather survived the Holocaust, so she was able to bring that, photo album with her because that's very important in our history. And it was genuinely what we could carry because it was about survival. It was about, you got to leave before they come get you. We left the house. My dad left his business, literally left. Like you leave it there and you just leave as if you're coming back that same day. And when we came to this country, it was a very, very big struggle, but one day at a time. We grew up with the mindset of like, we got to help mom and dad. We had very, very strict family values. And when we came here, I remember our first subway ride, and it was only 4, but I remember it very well because, like traumatic events, you kind of remember, like you remember where you were on 9/11, everything you did that day. This was like that for my family and my mom and even me. Like I remember being a child looking up and never seen anything like that before. The trains in Russia look like museums, just FYI. If you ever Google like the train station in Moscow, you will think you are in a cathedral. It's one of the most beautiful structures ever. And it's very clean. Imagine that to New York City, Manhattan. Yeah. I remember, and we were looking, and it's like from the homelessness to the rats. My mom and dad looked at each other like, what the fuck did we just do? Like, is this really where it's at? And it's funny that they picked New York because everybody was kind of talking amongst themselves. So they were seeking political asylum. So we came over here, and it was like, okay, they asked them at the embassy, where do you want to go? And it was, and a lot of, a lot of family went to Israel. We also got split up. I want to mention that my mom's family, like two of her sisters and a sibling, they didn't feel comfortable going to America. They had nobody here. They went to Israel. So my mom's entire family was split apart. My dad kind of kept it together. He was like, no, like my brother and my sister are going to be with me. We're going to do our own thing. We went to New York, and the embassy asked, like, where do you want to go? My dad was like, well, I heard like in New York, just dreams come true. That's where immigrants go to succeed. We're going to go to New York. And we tried to build a community here by telling other people that were Russian Jewish. We left, like, it was a collective. So like, I want to say 20 to 40,000 families emigrated at that time. It was all legal, but that was because of that collapse. So that we all came here with the same exact mindset. You have to hustle. You got to make it here. My parents came with the mindset of, you're going to get educated. You guys are going to all become something. So they sacrificed their lives for us to do something, over here.
When you came here, did your parents speak English? Did you speak any English?
No.
Nothing at all.
No.
Wow. So you had to learn a brand new language at 4 years old?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was genuinely easy. I picked up on it like this. I was a child, which is why I don't have an accent, but my mom has an accent. My brothers even have a little bit of an accent because they came here like 10 and like 12 almost. So they have a little bit of an accent. Sometimes it comes out, but it was very hard just watching my mom struggle. I should also mention that she was like, her job was almost like at the level of MD. So I think it was the equivalent of like a nurse practitioner where she had a lot of autonomy and all that. When she came here, that equivalent no longer existed. She would have to, take an exam and all of that and go back to school. So she worked in a bagel shop early in the morning, took night classes to be an RN, and worked as a medical assistant during the day. And she did all of this, like feeding 3 children, making ends meet. And my dad also, he was just out there trying to hustle, trying to find a job. It was very difficult in the beginning. So there is a huge personal effect here. When I see these migrants crossing over illegally and being handed thousands of dollars, it's like, you know what? They're doing a disservice to every single American citizen. These things are, that's not the way it should be. My mom, I remember, like, she just watches the news cycle and she has this look on her face, and you could see it. You could see it in her eyes. She's like, unbelievable how these people must feel.
Yeah. And especially right there in New York City too, where, God, I mean, they're giving away
the people at the hotel, the Roosevelt Hotel, which used to be once upon a time a luxurious hotel. It's been over a year. They're still there. You know how much money that is? It's our taxpayer dollar too. So, I'm very unhappy with Eric Adams. And I know the age-old question, why the hell are you still in New York? Well, because of that reason, because we came here 32 years ago. We built this entire community. It's not so simple for me, to just up and leave everything. My father passed away 9 years ago. I'm not going to leave my mom on her own. Sure. And she's just like, her family is here. Everyone is here. Everyone is here. So we want, and the state is mostly red. It like drives me insane. It drives me insane because it's really just this small, like this densely populated New York City, but everyone outside of New York City is freaking like full-blown trailblazing red, Yeah. So.
Now, what does your mom think of your impressions? Does she know all this is going on?
She is terrified because we are from communist Russia. And she goes, do you understand that you would have been thrown in prison or killed? Like, she thinks that, if you make fun of Putin, you freaking die. You cannot sit there and criticize the president of Russia this way. She's very much, I remember on Gutfeld, I made a jab about Hillary Clinton. My mom went ballistic. And when I tell you this, like, I don't mean it in a funny way. She was beside herself crying, called me like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, stop putting a negative attention on yourself. I'm like, Mom, it's okay here. So now that argument changed drastically because she's like, yeah, it's okay. Because it looks like your Kamala Mamala is a full-blown communist. Like, she's worse than Putin, it looks like to me. So she's like, you better start being careful. So she's very nervous. I always sometimes try to get on these interviews and tell Mom, I love you. You know that I should have been born a boy because I have bigger balls than your sons at times, but I really don't see it that way. And my brothers too, they're older than me. They've always been protective and they're just like, we get scared for you sometimes, man. Just please be careful. So
and scared for you, they're worried about like the government coming after you, or like the death threat people that are sending
both, everything. They're just like, listen, you're a mother, please, be careful. We know that you're a smart ass. We know how funny and great you are. And it's always been great to celebrate you. Like in our circle, you are being too raw for such a public platform and a world platform. And that's really what they say. And if they're listening, like, I send them all these links all the time for them to see it because they are always like shocked at the reach that I have. And I always tell them like, listen, guys, I have to stay true and authentic to myself. So I definitely dial it down. Like I'm not going to sit here and make a, like Kathy Lee Stewart, like she held up a bloody Trump head. I'm not at that level. I'm not going to try to sit here and ruffle feathers to the point where I'm asking for it. I'm not stupid either. That's just not a smart thing to do. You're going to like eradicate your own career. And I don't think that's normal. Don't make fun of them to the point where you're wishing death upon them. So
right. And that wasn't that also like wasn't that funny either.
It wasn't funny at all. It's disturbing. It's like, what the fuck are you trying to show?
Right. Like you're doing what you're doing seems to be like nothing more than what's always been done on like late night shows where you're satirizing or skewering like our political leaders, which has been like a tradition, right? I mean, I don't I don't know if you listened to Howard Stern back in the day, but he used to have a guy come on, and it was actually very effective because it was only on the radio, so you couldn't see him. This guy sounded exactly like David Letterman, right? They called him Evil Dave Letterman.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you remember that guy?
I've seen the clips of this. Yes.
Okay. I mean, and I was like, I actually I wonder if Letterman's in on this bit and he's just playing himself, or this caricature of himself. I don't even know. Who knows? I don't listen to Howard Stern anymore, but it was that this sort of like thing has been going on for a while. And I feel like you're just keeping up in that tradition. You just happen to be, you happen to be amazing at nailing that.
Thank you.
That impression. Listen, I know we're just about out of time here. I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up, and that is, maybe it's a weird question, but I think about identity politics is so much just like shoved in all of our faces these days and everything. So this question is kind of from there. And like I look at you, and if I never heard you do this Kamala impression or never heard you talk really or anything, just saw a picture of you, I think I would sort of rush to the judgment that you would be a Kamala Harris supporter. But you're not. You look like a woman of color to me, or a woman. I hate, it's such a weird phrase to say. But right, like I feel like I would come to that. So how is it that you are who you are and you're not a Kamala Harris supporter? How's that happen?
I mean, listen, for all the reasons that I just stated, I know exactly what communism looks like. I was born there. And and that's a great question, because even though I grew up and a lot of my, peers in school, because we were very heavily indoctrinated, growing up, I can attest to this right now. The things that we were taught in school, the things that I was taught at home, and I always tell people for this reason, it starts at home. You have to have like an iron lock on your kids at home, because when they try to sway you in the school system, and it's very slowly and it's very, very trickled, and they try to, push this women's empowerment, for example, right? And I'm going to get a little traditional for a second. So, I'm Russian. We are very old school when it comes to traditionally raising children. And it's to a point where the feminists of today, sometimes even some of my coworkers, like people that I grew up with at school, whatever, like the Americans, I say Americans, not immigrants, basically, the ones that are born here or assimilated here like 4 generations ago, they think, for example, that my dynamic with my husband is a complete disservice to me. Like that's why I don't tell girlfriends anything. Like I'll tell people like, there's a reason why we have such a high divorce rate. Don't talk to people about your home life and all this stuff, because it's not meant for everyone to understand. So people look at my lifestyle and they say, what the hell? Like, why are you're the only one that cooks? And I'm just like, listen, it's not about that. It's what works for us, but it's a traditional thing. And we firmly believe like man's at work all day. And it's like, yeah, but you're working too. And I'm like, it's about sacrifice. I knew what I was getting myself into. I got married at 21. That is culturally normal for us. Okay. For you, it's normal to get married at 30, 35. But guess what? You're single with a cat with diabetes. I have 3 kids by the time I'm 30. Which one of us do you think is benefiting in life? And which one of us do you think is struggling? Everyone has their own time. And I'm not saying anything about like cat ladies. I don't want to put that on people. But the point is, there is a time for everything. So I firmly believe for women, there is a time to get married and have children. That is why our bodies work the way that they work. And is it going to be harder in life? Absolutely, it's going to be harder in life. So when you say that, like you would probably be like a Kamala Harris impressionist, and I know we're running out of time, but I will tell you like this, it starts from home. I went to school to learn, and whatever it was that they tried to indoctrinate us with when it comes to things like this, for example, like marriage, sexual liberation, you have to be in charge of your own body, of your own destiny. Don't allow this, don't allow that. When I came home, it became more of like, no, you save yourself for marriage, because this is the way man and woman are meant to, whatever. So it was kind of like, yeah, we went to public school because my parents couldn't afford, private school to be able to try to instill different values in us. Yeah. But they made sure You come home, you talk to mom and dad, and they understood everything that was happening in school, and they taught us to be, free thinkers and critical thinkers. And again, just growing up in from the Soviet Union, we have a different lens that everybody else has. And I always find this relatable relationship with other immigrants, because they're like, oh, they have no idea, like they don't know. And we're all American, but when we say they really don't know. They don't understand the way it would be if it was like, the opposite spectrum. They're liberal. They think that liberalism is the answer. It's not. It's done. It's been done before, and it doesn't work. So I hope that answers that question. I hope I don't look too liberal, but
yeah, no. This is first of all, that's fascinating. It sounds like you're saying sort of the values instilled in you by your parents, and sort of them keeping you sort of grounded in that aspect, and then just your perspective. You have a unique perspective. Many Americans like myself, look, I'm a third generation American, right? All my ancestors came from Italy in the early 1900s. So
but the Italian values, I mean, we're the same corporation, different division. The Italian values are very similar.
Sure. But, I just don't have that perspective that you have. I was born here, raised here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All that said, I think we see things a lot in a similar way still, but a lot of people may not, and they don't have that perspective. And I think that
100%. I've even told stories about the way I was raised, and there was one video that went stupid viral on TikTok where I was explaining like a story about what happened with my dad when I was 16, and they were angry that I wasn't admitting to myself that I was abused as a child. And I was like, I wasn't abused. Like, if I resented my parents for it in adulthood, then maybe, I should probably look back and say, hey, I was traumatized at some point. I have the utmost love and respect for my parents. I even view their parenting, even though it was very rough at sometimes, I respect that and try to apply it to my kids. But my kids are so soft because they're growing up here. Right. They can't handle half the shit that my parents threw at us, So those people were like, no, honey, you were abused as a child. That's not right. Your parents were supposed to give you this and space and privacy. And I'm like, you're stupid. If you think that I was abused, I'm telling you I wasn't abused. And they just refused to believe it. They were like, no, you were abused, and that's it. You just don't realize it. I'm like, listen, we're going to agree to disagree. I was raised the way I was raised.
Yeah.
I personally think my life speaks for itself in that aspect of where I am, at my age with my kids. Not even this, just the way I've led life. I truly believe that sacrifice will point you in the right direction, and hard work and consistency. But sitting in like this generation is ridiculous. Sitting and complaining and saying, hey, how come he has more than me? Take it away from him and give it to me. That's just, I mean.
Well, those people were that's the participation trophy crowd that was at that. Well, listen, I know you need to go, but this was a fascinating conversation. Really, thank you for coming on and talking to me. And listen, nothing but continued good luck with this. And I mean, it's not even luck. You're making it happen. You're great. You're talented. But I just wish nothing but the best. And I mean, I guess last thing, are you at all wanting Kamala to win in some respect? Because like then you could do this for 4 more years.
Yes and no. Like I said before, I have to say there's probably only 1% of me, just because I would love to see like where this goes. And I would love to continue meeting people like yourself. I'm going to see Megyn Kelly later, Benny Johnson tonight. And I love this. I love this entire world, but I genuinely love our country more. If she wins, I mean, that's just, I don't know. I think that's the end. So I would much rather she not win.
So you're willing to sacrifice your career for the good of the country?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for talking with me, and this was such a great conversation. Really a lot of fun talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Andrew.